This one I want, that one. Right. So we are going to change the keyboard on a Spitfire. It's a very easy process, and throughout the process you're going to see the inside of the Spitfire and ways you can change RAM, change your secondary SATA drive, as well as your primary M2 SSD if you so desire. So it's fairly simple, and we've made these to be extremely easy to open up. So you've got a series of screws along the outside, and if you look closely, there are two very special screws that have the keyboard icon next to them, and I'll tell you more about what those are about, but essentially they're locking the keyboard down. So what we're going to do is we're going to start from the outside and remove all outside screws first. It might be useful to get special tools because these screws are obviously of a special size. That screwdrivers that are magnetic is a huge help, and those that go small enough. Also be careful with your screws. Keep them all together. And also note that these outside screws are different lengths than these two inside, which are longer, so you need to keep those separate because you don't want to mix those up. So we'll slowly go around and remove our outside screws. The key is take your time, don't rush this. With laptop screws, the last thing you want to do is strip them, either leaving them in the machine or making it so you can't screw them back in. So patience is very important. Right. Okay, and once we get all of the outside screws, we can keep those together. We'll mix them up. Then we're going to address the two big screws in the middle, that are the two with the keyboard icon next to them. These screws are bigger and they're longer because they screw all the way through the chassis and into the keyboard. Put those there. Fiddly. This is where even a magnetic screwdriver doesn't help you. It's always good to have tweezers to get the last few bits out. It's good to get yourself one of these small little kits. These are sold on Amazon, very inexpensive but easy to use. So the last thing is do a quick check, because I've many times left one screw in and it's a horrible experience. Okay, so now that we've done that, we need to open the laptop, because the next thing we're going to do is pop off the keyboard. So to do that, we keep the laptop open, and you'll see another icon here in the back that shows the keyboard and a little arrow. And that's because we need to pop it by putting pressure inside that button until the keyboard pops out and allows us to take it off. We're just going to put a nice blunt tool, as blunt as possible, in here. Push gently until we see a little pop. There we go. And the keyboard has started to come off. So now that it's started to come off, we can set it down. And you just work it around. And the important thing is there are two ribbon cables keeping the keyboard in place. And so we want to go real slow and be very careful. Right. So two ribbon cables affix the keyboard to the chassis, and we have to be very careful when lifting the keyboard up. So what we don't want to do is rip those out. So we want to be very careful. I'm going to take our tweezers, slowly just maneuver these cables out. Very slowly and gently. There we go, first one's out. Nice and slow. On the big one, we'll actually use our fingers. Just wiggle it nice and slow. Don't pull, because you might rip it. And that is it. Once those two ribbons are out, keyboard comes off. And now we have nice access. So if we wanted to upgrade RAM, we've got a few further screws we have to do. So to upgrade the RAM, we will go in and take this plate off and be able to access our RAM in here. and be able to access our fans if we need to make any changes. Okay, and now that the keyboard is off, we can remove the back. And right here you see our Corsair DDR4 RAM. This is our M2 SSD. This is a WD, and it looks like this is our 250. Yep, this is our 250 gig SSD. Here we have our second SATA drive. So if you want to change your drive, maybe change that to an SSD. This currently is a spinning 5400 RPM drive. Battery here, fans here. So on the other side, we have our USB 3.0 jack. We've got our headphone and microphone here. Here are speakers, our little speakers. You see them both right here. Nice little guys. Manjaro team has done a heck of a job getting the most out of these very small speakers. And here, in future, we have an expandable space in the chassis for a 4G, 3G modem. So we'll be able to put modem and antennas in as well, if requested. 2 RAM slots. You get a maximum of 16 gigs per RAM slot. There's these little pins. When you click them on either side, the RAM pops up, you pull it out. So it's nice and easy. Just put that in. Just again, go really slow with everything you do. Push it down till it clicks. That's in. We're going to do the same with this one now. Okay, so we match the pins. There's one notch. Make sure you find the notch. You can't really do this wrong because the notch won't match. So make sure you find the notch. Put it in. Push nice and slow till you hear click. That's it. This is now a 16 gig RAM machine. So that is it for the chassis. If you want to make any changes, again, you must remove the keyboard first. This back panel will not come off until that keyboard is off. So make sure you go through all those steps, remove the keyboard. At that point, you can remove the back and start to make your updates and upgrades. I'm going to put that back on, but we're not going to screw it back in yet. We're just going to set it on lightly because we're going to maneuver it back in place properly in a second. So, and this is a real careful process, because what we have to do, we've got to get these ribbons in, and we've got to get them in right. So what you want to do is just start out and hold the ribbon, find the entry point into the little slot, and we're going to wiggle it till it goes true. So don't rush this. This is something you have to do slowly. The blue one gives you a little bit more space, so we're going to use 2 hands for that. Sometimes you have to be a little dexterous and go around the other ribbon. So just don't rush this. This is a very slow process. Wiggle it in, and there we go. They're both in. Just double check them. You then see the large rivets here. These need to be tucked in first. Make sure they're well tucked in, and then work from the top right, and just work your way around. Okay. Go around a second time, make sure everything is snug, tight, make sure you got some nice feedback, and that is that. Keyboard is in. We'll switch it back over now. The first 2 screws we put in are the keyboard screws. So those are the extra long screws that you put aside separately. There's that. And then we work our way around with our external screws. Again, never rush. Nice and slow. Again, I can't stress enough how nice it is to have a screwdriver with magnetic tip, because these little guys, I have to almost maneuver them into place by floating them around the hole until it finds it. You get a little bit of bite.
What I want to see with that video is the CEO of the company is screwing around.
I know, I know, I know. Maybe that gives confidence that everybody knows what they're doing. Okay. just double check. I can't tell you guys how many times I've left a screw in, and then you push it, and you just don't understand why it's not coming off. Okay, so remember, gently, gently till it goes.